Hi everybody, it's crazy, it's Monday, and it's time for the UPBGE video of the week. Now before I get started, gotta get a shout out to my trust because you guys rock. To my crazy fam, I love you guys. Now we're up to episode number 116, and we left off last week, if I could do this right, there we go, writing your Python scripts, okay? So we also ended with the file abracadabra.blend, and if you hit P, oh, you gotta be in the file here, there we go, you hit P and hold the space bar, you can see abracadabra, okay? So we learned a little bit more about how the console works, or the not the text editor, logic editor and the text editor can work together, okay, using Python scripts. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so writing your own scripts. If you haven't started your own scripts, now is a good time to do so. You will need a text editor, the API modules documented, and a good way to test your files. Text editors. It's important to find a script editor that you find pleasant to work with. The most important features you will be looking for are syntax coloring, and that's this little guy right here in Blender. Okay, that's syntax coloring. It adds the colors to certain syntaxes that will pop out and that are important. Okay, auto indentation, and in other words, and if you hit enter after a colon, it will give you your force spacing or your tab. Okay, so that kind of gives you a little bit of help there. And auto completion, and I believe that's down here somewhere that you can turn on, but I don't think it does have it for this. Okay, you also have templates you can get to as well to help you out with finding out more information. Okay, you can find editors with even more features than these. So experiment with different alternatives and decide what's best for you. Notepad, Notepad++. Most of the scripts presented in this chapter are coded using Notepad++. This Windows-based operating open source text editor is non-Python specific but handles Python syntax highlighting well. You can download Notepad++ from their website. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know if SourceForge is still up. But all you got to do is type in Google Notepad++, and it will pop up that. And you can also just type in Python editors, and you can find a whole lot of them. And download several of them. Try them out and see which one best fits you. Okay, if you're using Linux or OS X, there are plenty of native alternatives that may serve you even better. Okay, the Blender text editor. Okay, that's this little guy right here. As you probably know, Blender has its own internal text editor. Although it may not be as powerful as software designed exclusively for this particular task, it can be very convenient. It's useful for quick tests, small scripts, or when you want to keep everything bundled inside the Blender file. Here are some are its main features. Syntax highlighting. We just went through that one. Okay, syntax highlighting. Dynamic font sizes. You can actually change the font sizes to be smaller or bigger depending upon how you read things. Indentation conversion, which I just showed you. And line counting. That's this little right here. If you hit this little guy right here, they disappear. Okay, here adds numbers. Okay. And then search over multiple internal files. You can do that right here. Okay. Also, you can do syntax with external files. If you browse for certain files, it will also pop them up here, and it will put the syntax on them. Okay. All right. So reference material and documentation. Since the game engine Python API is available online, you have an official excuse to keep a web browser open while you work. It's not a bad idea to keep an offline version of it too. You can find it on the book files. Okay, so if you look in the description, you'll find the book files as well, along with the book. If you haven't downloaded them by now, yeah, might want to. Okay. All right, use it when you need to be more productive and the internet is getting in your way, as in always. Okay, I used to do mine offline because it's a lot easier to work on my projects without having Windows pop up and everything else saying, hey, you gotta do this, hey, you need to do that, hey, you got mail. Yeah, no, it's no fun. Okay, so an offline version can actually help you keep better production going than being online when things are popping up and everything else, okay? Because all those notifications do like to let you know stuff. All right, so it's a good idea if you can start to gather example materials from the internet and keep them organized. If you use the append feature in Blender to navigate to and import text files from your collection, you will not even need to open another Blender application. Also, if you are consistent with your naming style, indentation rules, and file structures, you will find easy to reuse your own scripts. Okay, what they're talking about is coming up here, file, coming to append, okay, and you can actually look for text documents here, okay. We're not going to do that, so I'm going to hit cancel, okay, but you can have, look in that library and find text files you can import, okay. All right, so testing your scripts. Let's see, where's that put me at? Page, where am I at? 24? Okay, page 24. Yeah, testing your scripts. It doesn't matter how easy Python is, you will spend evenings testing and retesting your scripts before you have them working properly. The more complete way to test your script is to play it inside the game engine. However, you may not want to load your game every time you need to be sure of some Python syntax, data types, built-in functions, or simply to check if the math of a result is correct. Trust me, not fun. Okay? In those cases, you can use an interactive interpreter to help you. If you have Python installed on your system, you have it already. If you are using Windows, this will be the Python exec application in your Python installation directory. By default, it's cprompt, Python, whatever version you have, okay? And it will, basically by default considering the installation of Python, okay? If you have Python 3.1, then it's going to be Python 3.1, not 3.1. Don't put the dot in there because that automatically assumes something different. Okay, in Linux or OS X, you have to type Python in any console and you are good to go. You also have the IDE that comes with Python if you don't want to have to use the command line. You can use the IDE exe in the Python folder and put a shortcut to your desktop and you've got an interpreter right there. It's Python specific and it's perfect for what you need to do, and you can write all kinds. I don't actually think I have Python installed on my computer anymore. The only reason why is because I had to redo my system, and yeah, it's one of the things I haven't downloaded yet because I haven't had the chance to use it. And I wanted to start from scratch, so getting the newest Blender API was what I was wanting to do instead of having the older ones. Okay, you can also use the Blender Python console. Change one of your current windows into the console and you should see the screen. Okay, and what it's talking about, and if I go over here and I just drag this down, okay, and then we go right here and we look for Python console, you click it there, and here it gives you a whole bunch of information. You can type in certain things to find out what context it is or data type it is. Like say you want to find out what logic means, you can actually put it in here. There's a certain way. You got to make sure you read this and understand it before you try to mess with this, okay? It's made to actually help you find the code that Blender uses, because the API in Blender is Python, but the whole Blender itself is made with C++. So you have to have certain syntaxes, and it's got its own libraries that it uses, that regular Python does not have. So if you type in, a Python command, it's going to say, yeah, you're looking in the wrong directory for this. So make sure you understand how this works before you try to get into it. You can find it very easily online. You can go to the Blender website. You can also go to the Blender Discord server or a BG and a BGE server and find it and ask people around how to use this and how to use it to your best advantage. Okay. Now you can use it to type simple codes or to run a help or a dir or directory into any of the Python modules. Unfortunately, only Blender modules have the autocomplete working from there. Okay, so if you know, like, this is like right here, that right there is just a standard Python. Okay, but if you're looking in here in logic and get current scene, that right there, get current scene, is a Python specific. Okay, so you can look under logic, okay, and you can type bge.logic, all right, and find it. All right, and in the newer versions of Blender, you will not have this option. Okay, you can't really do anything in here unless you're using a BGE and not Blender itself. If you're using the standard Blender, Blender 3, Blender 3.0 or plus, I believe this right here is no longer in there. You can use it for creating modules for animations and stuff like that, but you won't be able to use it for game specifics anymore, which is sad. Another important strategy is to keep your development of new functionalities outside the main file. For example, if you need to develop a navigation system, as we will soon, you don't need to use your real big, high textured scenario. Definitely not for the early tests. If you keep independent systems that work together, you will be able to identify errors faster and easier, and even to port fixes over to other projects smoothly. Okay, so what that's meaning is you want to have these files separate and have it just look into those files. So you'll be looking here, okay, for these particular files when you're looking for them. Okay, you don't want to try to keep them in here and not save them. If you write them in here, that's fine and good, but make sure you save them into the project folder and separate from it. That way, whenever you say, for example, you and a buddy are working on a project and you want to send him your files, it will carry, you will lose this if it's outside. You will have to package it up with the files and send it with them. If you keep it in here, then if he changes it, it won't fix it on your end. He has to send you it back, and then you have to fix it here. Instead, he can send you the whole information plus the text file, and you can just look at upload the text file because it'll be automatically saved here. Okay, it will be saved as a directory, and you would come here and go, okay, yeah, he updated that, so here it is. Oh, it was this line right here. He changed the ABBA to ABRA. Okay, and which saved you from having to figure out why isn't your ABRA working like it's supposed to. Okay, so basically you want to keep that in keep your files separate. Your text files in a separate deal, your textures in a separate deal, so on and so forth, because you don't want it to hinder your project file that you're working on, because you're working in here. The more you have it in these windows, the more it's going to drag Blender down. So you have them separate, and it just looks at those. That's why linking is a really good thing. All right, so that ends it there. We're going to stop on the bottom of page 26, designing your Python script study example. We'll continue that next week. Let me go over here. Let's see. Boop, 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 and boop. There we go. Okay, so designing your Python scripts study example next week, bottom of page 26. So, that's about it. So until next week.